Should you self-manage or should you hire an estate agent to manage your rental property? Welcome back to another video, and that is today's topic, as it's one of my most frequently asked questions because I invest over 270 miles away from my home. In this video we're going to look at the pros and the cons of each one, and then we're going to look at the financials because I know you love the numbers. So just before we get started, let's look at the two decisions that you have in front of you. So you've bought a buy-to-let property, you're going to get it rented out and put a tenant in there. Do you go down the route of a managing agent where you pay a fixed fee per month, but they help you find the tenant, they help you with the paperwork, they help you with the maintenance, and of course collecting the rent if you go down the route of fully managed? Or do you self-manage the property where you find the tenant, do the paperwork, deal with the maintenance, but of course you don't pay any fee? That is a decision that every investor has in front of them and has to make at some point, and that's why I want to help you out today. So let's start by looking at the managing agent side of things. Let's look at the pros and the cons, and as a reference point, it's good to note that most landlords pay about 10% plus VAT per month for a managing agent. So that's 10% of the rental value, i.e. if you pay £500 per month, that's £50 plus VAT that you're going to be paying to the managing agent to take care of the property for you. But let's start with the pros. Pros for having a managing agent are, of course, hands off. So you're more hands off, you're more out of the equation, which is perhaps one of the most appealing ones for me. So if you are more hands off, you of course have more time to spend growing your property business. You know, if you are looking to build more of a portfolio, you are going to be spending more time looking to acquire more properties, and if so, you will have more time to grow your business. You know what they say, don't you? Be an investor, not a landlord. You know, a landlord is someone that takes care of properties and looks after the maintenance and the tenants. Well, wouldn't you prefer to be an investor, spend time investing in more properties, building that business? And of course, last but not least, less stress. Not always the case, but you're at least pulling back on some of that stress, and hopefully you can take your mind and time away from dealing with stressful situations regarding maintenance and tenant issues. So flipping on its head, let's look at the cons, and of course, you're going to have less profit. We've already discussed that you're going to be paying maybe 10% plus VAT per month, plus other fees that come up. So that's money straight off of your monthly profit, and it can be quite a large amount. You of course have less control over choosing the tenant, and therefore less control over your portfolio if you have multiple properties rented out with a managing agent and you are still involved. And what do I mean by that when I've already said that you're hands off? Well, still involved because you still have to sign off when a bit of maintenance comes up. Yes, the managing agent will take care of the handymen and sending people in to quote for the jobs, but you've still got to review the jobs, sign off the money, and therefore you're still part of that process. You're never completely hands off. And now let's take a look at the self-management side of things. And of course, in theory, it costs nothing other than your time and your efforts. So let's look at the pros to start with, which of course is larger profits or larger profit margins, because that's money you're immediately saving from not using a managing agent. You've got more control, so more control over the tenants that you choose, and therefore more control over your portfolio and risk if you're managing all of your properties. One-to-one communication, which can somewhat be a positive and a negative, but very much a positive sometimes if you just need to speak with the tenant. You haven't then got to go through the agent and be concerned as to how that communication is being passed on. Last but not least, job satisfaction and enjoyment. You know, not everyone wants to just be an investor. Some people do want to spend time being a landlord and taking care of the tenants and get a lot of satisfaction out of providing a nice home and a good service. So that's absolutely an important thing and is a pro if that's what you're interested in. Now let's move on to the cons for self-management, and of course the first one has to be the 2 AM phone calls. You know, who hasn't heard of them, right? I don't actually know if they're a regular occurrence, but there is every chance that a pipe could burst during the night, house is flooding, and the tenant panics and calls you. So you could get random phone calls when you don't want them. You might even be on holiday and get a phone call, you know, so that's one of the main cons from my perspective. Paperwork, and when I say paperwork, I mean, you know, tenancy agreements, references, credit checks, everything like that, you have to do yourself. You have to write up yourself and agree with the tenant. Next is legislation, which I don't actually think is that big a deal. I think it's quite easy to stay up to date with legislation, especially if you have an interest in property. But one good thing to do would be, as a landlord, would be to sign up to the NLA, which I'd highly recommend. Contractors, well, of course, you've got to have a good power team at hand, so that then if something does go wrong at 2 AM in the morning, then you can call someone up who's going to get round there as soon as possible to help solve the issue. Last of all, chasing rent. I mean, that's something I've never wanted to get involved with. You know, if a tenant was to pay late or doesn't pay you, you've then got to chase the rent. So they're the pros, they're the cons. I'm sure you could probably tell by now that I'm slightly biased towards the managing agent side of things because I want to be hands-off. But I'm trying to look at this from both perspectives, as they're both very suitable ways to run your property business. Now, let's look at the numbers. I know you love the numbers. I know I love the numbers. So let's say that we bought a property at £80,000 and that we rented it out at £550 per month. Now, the agent cost on that is 10% plus VAT, as we mentioned, which would be £66. Now, we're not taking into account any tenant find fee or any of the additional fees involved. We're just looking at the month to month, which is £66 a month. The mortgage is £158, interest only, at 3.2% for a limited company. And the insurance is £24, giving us a total profit of £302 per month. Over 12 months, that gives us £3,624. And then if we had 5 properties, assuming all at the same value, the same rent, if we had 5 of those properties over 12 months, would produce £18,120. Now, let's compare it to the self-managed side of things, which of course, the cost is £0 per month because it's your time and your effort involved. Same mortgage cost, same insurance, means that we get £368. So good profit margin and an extra £66 a month essentially. Over 12 months, that one property, it's going to make us £4,416. And over 5 properties, assuming all the same values, same rents, 5 properties over 12 months is going to produce £22,080. So now that we've worked out exactly what the costs are of having managing agent versus self-managing, now let's look at the money you could save from self-managing. So we now know that over one property, over 12 months, we could save potentially £792. So then we know that 5 properties, if you have a portfolio of 5 times 12 months, means that we would save £3,960 over that year, which that's a large sum of money and arguably goes in the favour of why you should self-manage your properties. Or does it? Because the other way of looking at this is if you went down to a business down the road and got a job, would you allow them to pay you £3,960 a year? Because that's effectively what you're saying to yourself there, is that's what you think you're worth for 1 year's worth of employment. So clearly you can make yourself a good saving and you can make your portfolio more efficient by self-managing. But in my opinion, if you are looking to grow your property portfolio more, maybe you're looking to grow a business, maybe you're looking to play more golf or go on holiday, then actually having a managing agent in place could be the more effective way to go. However, flipping on its head, once again, if you just want to have a couple of properties and you want to make them as efficient as possible, so as much profit as possible, maybe you really enjoy taking care of the tenants and the customer service side of things, then maybe self-management is for you, because then you can be hands-on, you can be part of it and treat it more like a hobby than a job. So I guess to caveat this video, it goes without saying that either option is viable. It just comes down to personal preferences. So do what works for you as a business person, but also for your lifestyle. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you next time.